in a way, we are enemies, Israel and Hamas, but we share the same interest by a hidden page, and this is exactly what happened.
Well, remember, there's two Israels. There's an Israel, just like there's two Palestines, or maybe two and a half. There is a part of Israel that wants to have partition. And that part of Israel does not want Hamas in charge in Gaza. There's another part of Israel that wants to kill the two-state solution, or at least limit it to Gaza only. And that part of Israel, right-wing Israel, is kind of happy with Hamas in Gaza, I think. They're sort of unspoken allies. But it is, I agree with you, this makes Hamas look better. No doubt about it. I mean, in two ways. Ironically. One, you can clearly see the difference between the Islamic Jihad's ability to fire rockets at Israel and in general to do damage and Hamas's. I mean, everyone in Israel should be very happy Hamas did not join in, at least as yet they haven't. And it's clear. So they look tougher. On the other hand...
Not just Israel being happy, Hamas has a lot to lose if it joins in.
In the past, that hasn't deterred them. But on the other hand, and in the other direction, they look more reasonable than Islamic Jihad. They behaved according to a certain narrative responsibly. If anyone in Israel wants to look forward to a day when there is maybe not an official kosher stamp, but some kind of plausible narrative excuse to do business with Hamas, I think the past 5 days or 4 days have enabled them, have contributed to that.
So is Hamas on its way to become the responsible adult and Islamic Jihadi bad boy, the troublemaker of the neighborhood, similarly to what we've seen a few years ago with the Palestinian Authority, Fatah, and Hamas?
Everything is relative in this world.
Right.
If it will not be achieved, okay, we are not there yet. But if it will not be achieved, and Israel will continue with the operational, let's say, targeting or targets and doing a great job, I think that this will force Hamas to join to the round of escalation, and this is what we, Israel and Hamas, wants to avoid from.
In two different ways. One is the more longer goes on, the more they look a little bit foolish from their perspective to not join in and allow Islamic Jihad.
Collaborators. As simple as it sounds.
They look that way. Yeah. The other thing is, of course, the longer it goes on, the more eventually there will be some errant missile that kills a whole bunch of people, and then the pressure on them politically.
Like we've seen. So Dan, will the Islamic Jihad tactic will be to drag it as much as possible, so Hamas will have no other choice but to join in?
The dynamic between Hamas and Islamic Jihad is very interesting, I find. Sure, on one hand, they're rivals, and Hamas does not want Islamic Jihad to get too much credit for being at the forefront of the fight. On the other hand, I have always felt, and it's not only me, that Hamas uses sometimes Islamic Jihad for plausible deniability when they want stuff to happen, but they don't want to get blamed. And Israel's response to that historically has been, you're in charge, we blame you anyway. I would agree that right now Hamas is starting to look a little bit weak by not doing anything while Gazans, militants, but not only militants, are being killed by Israel from the skies. And the pressure will mount on them. I agree with Grisha. I mean, one event, two events, one a day, they can maybe contain, but there's a center of gravity past which they will feel pressure. On the other hand, these are Islamic fundamentalist militants. It's not a democracy, and it's a pretty harsh hierarchy. And in the end, there's a few people that decide. We can make assessments, but to a certain extent, it's speculation what they will do.
Yes, and as always, if we're talking about the clock ticking backwards, there's also the issue of international credit until this point in time, still facilitating this Israeli operation to persist. If it will drag longer, that might no longer be the case.
We are trying to do our best in order to defend civilians, and yesterday's example is the best example. I mean, in 1 hour or around 1 hour. In 1 hour, we had the footage which helped us explaining our counterpartners abroad that it's not us to be blamed, it's them.
Yeah, so we're definitely seeing a swifter mechanism, so to speak. Is that what is granting Israel this industrial quiet from the global community at this point?
It's part of it, but also there has been no mass killing of civilians. There's been heartbreaking and tragic events, and there have been a number of children killed, mostly probably by the errant missile from the jihad, but not so much the pressure will mount on Israel. The fundamental, the foundation here is that the world does not have a lot of sympathy for the Islamic terrorist groups running Gaza. The world does have sympathy for Israel's efforts to prevent rockets upon its territory and even to re-engineer the situation in Gaza if Israel ever wanted to do that. But the world does not have patience for massive killing of civilians. That's basically it.
And also perhaps the global attention is elsewhere.
One other thing I would like to underscore, Israel throughout its history has benefited from, I would say, a credibility gap vis-a-vis its Arab rivals, enemies, and so forth. In recent years, that gap is closed. For a whole number of reasons. The Arab world has become not democratic, but more transparent, Al Jazeera and so forth. Israel has lost credibility. Social media. Israel has lost credibility, and for the past decade or so, the actions of the IDF and of the government of Israel seem to not recognize that, and they're always surprised when people don't believe what they say. What I've witnessed in the past couple of days, this event in Jabalia being the main instance of it, suggests they're starting to get it, and that it really helps their case, gives them breathing room, wins them diplomatic time, if they really prove a point and not just state it.
I think that another important point is the fact that the world perceives the Islamic Jihad as being partners or allies of Iran.
Yeah.
But we also need to take into consideration I would call it special circumstances Israel is currently at amidst yet another election season, and no other way to put it than Perry. Major test for Israeli interim Prime Minister Yair Lapid.
Sure. I mean, Netanyahu has done everything in his power to delegitimize this government and to trivialize Lapid. They suggest every possible way that he is incapable of leading a security operation, that he can't be trusted with a situation as combustible as Israel's. Should Lapid survive these several days, should this end more or less as things are looking now, with a success that caused no significant damage to Israel and did not embroil Israel in any particular did not carry a cost on the international scene, that will look good for Lapid, and I think probably carry some political dividends. I don't for a second suspect, as I have in the past, that elements
that it's
of
a wag the dog type of a situation.
Yeah, I don't think this is a political thing, but
if it was Netanyahu, I would believe pundits could have potentially suggested
I myself last year had more than some speculation about how the timing of what was an Israel-induced event might have had political aspects to it. But here, I do not think so. Nonetheless, I think he stands to benefit. And I must say, he has done so well to date that he's even getting some begrudging compliments from the Likud side.